What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, and right now you are not watching DaVinci Reacts because this is more like DaVinci Rants. I think this is a DaVinci Rants video, so I'm going to go ahead and categorize that as that. Today I'm going to be talking about the whole Living with Michael Jackson documentary and Michael Jackson in general. Let me go ahead and start by saying, first of all, because of the topic that this is, I'm going to try to dedicate this towards having rational discussions using logical foundations and things like that. If you're going to go in the comment section and start making declarations with no substance or anything to back it up, it will get blocked. I don't want to hear anything in the comment section about Michael Jackson's a pedophile without any type of actual evidence that leads to that. And I don't want to hear anything about Michael Jackson is innocent because, again, unless you have actual evidence that leads to that, that is impossible to say. Only way to logically say that Michael Jackson is innocent is if you're around him 24/7 and you know for a fact that he didn't do anything. Only thing we can go off of is based on the accusations that were made against him. And with that, it's all about looking at evidence and what I guess can convince you. My issue with the situation isn't so much that there's accusations against Michael Jackson or anything like that. If there is accusations, then they need to come forward. That was the whole point of the Me Too movement. But just like the Me Too movement, I feel like sometimes it can be used to get more shadier things done. And I think that we need to take a step back and make sure we look at the evidence and things like that. I don't believe that whole believe victims bullshit movement where you believe a victim no matter what they say, all like from the very beginning. I think that what you should do is if somebody's accused of something, you should take it seriously and you should investigate it. Now, like I said, the Me Too movement was created because originally that was not happening. People would get accused of stuff and it would get swept under the rug and buried and things like that. So the fact that stuff is starting to come to light, I think that is a fair point, and I think that it should get investigated. Now, let's go ahead and investigate these claims. I don't know the full facts right now. I don't have the information in front of me, so I'm not going to start pulling stuff off the top of my head unless I feel like I know it, or at least as much as you can know something. At the same time, I'm not going to dismiss something if I don't have any proof of believing it. Only thing we can go off of is based on, logical outcomes. Pretend like you're a juror in the trial. Now, I haven't seen the documentary, and I'm not going to buy HBO to get the documentary, so there will be a part 2 to this video at some point. When I have seen the documentary, I will make a part 2, in which case I will address the claims in the videos, and I'll look at both sides to see if the claim is credible or not. This video is pretty much speculation based off of things that I've heard in the past or things that I've been able to do research on. So right now I want to try to tackle the more basic arguments for and against the Michael Jackson situation. So the first argument that I want to go against the Michael Jackson situation is something that a lot of people make a mistake on, and that is Michael Jackson slept in the bed with children. First of all, let's get this out of the way. Even if he did sleep in a bed with children, which, well, I'll get into this. Even if he did sleep in a bed with children, that does not equate molestation. That is just coming from a logical standpoint. It is similar to making an argument from ignorance, because the only defense that I've heard people make about that is, well, what do you think they did? That is an argument from ignorance. There are many things that can happen in a bed with a child, and the action we only know that's confirmed is sleep. That's it. And I think that a lot of people tend to equate bedrooms with sex. It's just a connotation. But I can tell you personally, but at least half of the times I've had sex were not in the bedroom. So does that mean that the other areas that I've had sex should be equated with sex as well? If I share a car with somebody, does that mean that we possibly had sex? It's possible, but that doesn't mean that that is the only thing that could have happened. Oh, well, Devon was in a car with somebody. Obviously, what do you think happened? No, you don't know what happened. So to equate that, oh, well, he was in a bed with him, you realize, kids can get molested in other areas. It doesn't have to just happen in the bedroom. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet that most of the molestations, or at least people who commit molestation on a widespread level, not just like a family member or something like that, but somebody that molests a lot of kids, I'm willing to bet most of the molestation doesn't take place in bedrooms. That's just that's just my opinion on it. Again, that's speculation, but at the end of the day, it's a fallacy to think that, oh, well, he molested them because he slept in the same bedroom as them or whatever. Now, I can pull up 2 different situations where Michael Jackson specifically said that he either has never shared a bed with a kid or he has shared a bed with Macaulay Culkin and his family, but that was the only instance. The first instance, I remember him saying that he never slept in the same bed as a kid, because he did say share a bed with a kid, but he did explain it. And that was during the Living with Michael Jackson documentary with Martin Bashir, in which case he said that he shared a bed with a kid, but to share a bed with a kid means to let the kid or let the company sleep in the bed and you take the floor or something else.
But is it really appropriate for a 44-year-old man to share a bedroom with a child who is not related to him at all?
That's a beautiful thing.
That's not a worrying thing?
Why should it be worrying? Who's the criminal? Who's Jack the Ripper in the room? This is a guy trying to help heal a child. I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I gave him the bed because he has a brother named Star. So him and Star took the bed, and I'm on the floor in the sleeping bag.
Did you ever sleep in the bed with them?
No. But I have slept in the bed with many children. I sleep in the bed with all of them. When Macaulay Culkin were little, Kieran Culkin would sleep on this side, Macaulay Culkin's on this side, his sister's in there. We're all just jamming the bed. And we wake up like dawn and go in the hot air balloon. We have the footage. I have all that footage.
But is that right, Michael?
It's very right. It's very loving. That's what the world needs now. More love.
There's that. And then the second case was when he was interviewed on 60 Minutes after that documentary took place. And I think it was after he got arrested for by the Santa Barbara Police Department. He did a interview with, I think it was Ed Bradley. And he said that, again, he doesn't sleep in the same bed with kids. He shared his bed with kids. He said the only people that he actually slept in a bed with were Macaulay Culkin, in which case it wasn't just him and Macaulay Culkin. It was him, Macaulay Culkin, and the rest of their family, his brothers, his sisters, and even his, I believe, mom. I don't think his dad was a part of it. But that was the claim that he made. Now, I have heard another claim in which case Michael Jackson has said that he slept in a bed with other kids. Now, even giving the argument the benefit of the doubt, and let's say that he did sleep in a bed with other kids as well. Let's just go with that. Let's ignore all the other times he said he didn't and go with the time that he said that he did. Again, at the end of the day, it does not equal molestation. All that confirms is that he slept in a bed with a kid. I equate it a lot to the argument that religious people make, in which case they'll make an argument for God and then they'll use some type of thing that's going on in the world that does not equate to God. It's kind of like when someone says, oh, well, how do you explain how the trees are here? How do you explain how a baby is made? Or they'll use an argument like, oh, well, but the Big Bang Theory isn't confirmed, or we don't know for a fact if that is how it happened, so therefore God. Like, no, you're kind of making a jump. You have to be able to lay down the foundation towards that. That's the reason why Michael got off in the trial, was because all the accusations and stuff didn't equate to child molestation. Now, again, this video isn't to say Michael Jackson is innocent. All I'm going off of is based on the accusations that are made against him. It's very possible that somebody could come out and say Michael Jackson did something to me and have solid evidence to back it up, in which case Michael Jackson would be sexual predator. Like, that's what would happen. I mean, that's why I don't agree with the whole Michael Jackson's innocent thing, because we don't know for a fact how anyone is when you're not with them. That's just logical. Y'all don't know who I am. So if there was a discussion or something, or if I ever got in trouble, for y'all to come out and say, oh, well, Devon DaVinci, he wouldn't do anything, he's innocent, or something else. Like, technically, you don't know. You don't know what happened. You weren't there. So I would hope that you would make a logical conclusion based on evidence. That goes for anything. That's the reason why we don't just automatically believe stuff and go with it. I'm sure a lot of you have had examples or situations where someone was accused of something, and you might even have a personal connection with somebody. Maybe it was somebody in your family, or maybe it was a friend of yours, anything like that, that you know didn't do what they were accused of. But for the person outside looking in, they have to, like, they don't know the person, so they have to still go based off the evidence. You can't just jump to, oh, well, he would never do it, or at least we can't. We can't jump to, oh, well, that person would never do it, even though we don't know that person. Like, it's impossible for us to say so. So, again, I'm going based off of logic and trying to ignore all fallacies. If you're in the comment section and you're leaving fallacies, oh, well, but he was weird, but he bleached his skin. He said that he didn't bleach his skin and he bleached his skin, so he's a liar. That doesn't equate to sexual molestation. And then that also falls into something else, and that is the whole red flags argument. Well, there's a lot of red flags in with Michael Jackson's character. Why is it that people ignore the red flags and, you know, try to blame the accusers? Well, that's because the accusers have red flags as well. It seems to me like both sides are looking at red flags on the other side, but not acknowledging the red flags on their side. To say, oh, well, Michael Jackson lied about other stuff in the past, so that means something must have happened. That is ignoring the fact that the accusers also have red flags and have lied in the past. So as far as we know, only thing we can confirm in it is both of them are liars. That doesn't equal one side is automatically right and the other side is wrong because I'm on this side and the other side lied. That's not how logic works. All we can go off of is based off of what's confirmed. Both sides have lied in the past about specific things. Michael Jackson has lied about, and before, let me go ahead and say, let me change the word to fabricated, because we don't really know intent. Because I've heard that on the Living with Michael Jackson wow, the Leaving Neverland documentary, they have come up for reasons for why they have changed their stories from the past. Until I actually watch it, I'm going to go ahead and try to keep an open mind and say I'm not going to put intent into it. I'm going to assume maybe there's a reason behind why both sides may have lied, fabricated. So from now on, I'm going to say fabricated. Michael Jackson has fabricated in the past about sleeping in the bed with kids. First, he has had situations where he said that he only slept in a bed with Macaulay Culkin. He said he has never slept in a bed with other kids. And then he said he slept in a bed with kids before. That only pertains to that one specific area, sleeping in a bed with kids. That doesn't equal molestation. But the problem is that on the accuser side, they have been caught lying in regards to the specific allegations. It's not something that's unrelated that can be associated with the allegations. It's the allegations themselves. The two accusers as of right now are Wade Robson and James Safechuck. And in Wade Robson specifically, or Wade Robson, I said Robinson. Wade Robson in specifically, because I don't know a lot about the James Safechuck situation. I'd have to look more into it. The Wade Robson situation, he has come out and said, or at least initially, he said that, you know, it was repressed memories. He had a nervous breakdown. He was getting counseled, and during the psychologist sessions or whatever, he remembered repressed memories about Michael Jackson molesting him. That has changed over time to, well, it wasn't repressed memories. I knew the whole time. It was just that I didn't know that what we did was considered bad.
First of all, one thing I want to clear up is that this is not a case of repressed memory in any way.
It's been reported in the press some.
I never forgot one moment of what Michael did to me. But I was psychologically and emotionally completely unable and unwilling to understand that it was sexual abuse.
And then it changed again to, oh, well, I kind of knew what was going on, but we were in love. So that was the reason why I felt that I had to protect him. We were in love with each other.
You did not think, this is creepy, don't touch me, this is wrong. You didn't think any of that?
No, I didn't think any of that. It was, again, the feeling was, out of all the kids in the world, here I am, and Michael chose me. And he also told me that, you know, I've never done this
Right.
with anybody else.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was more to, wow,
I'm very special.
you know, he chooses me and he loves me.
So already the story has had multiple issues with it. Now that is a fact. You can go back and look at his older interviews and get the words directly from him. I'm not pulling from some Michael Jackson fan site or a Michael Jackson, I guess they say hater site. So you will not hear me referencing MichaelJacksonAllegations.com, and you will not hear me referencing MichaelJacksonFacts.com. Both those websites will take stuff and not necessarily point towards sources or references, or they'll say stuff inside their stories, in which case it'll give you the impression that they have a bias either for or against Michael, either calling them specific names or listing events that happened in a certain way to try to push a narrative or anything like that. Anyone out there that is familiar with cable news networks, you should know how this works. That's why I always say, make sure you look at both sides of an argument and come to a conclusion. The only thing you should be using those websites for is for middlemen to get to the actual source that they're referencing and see if that source is reliable. And also see if the story that was made by that source was ever recanted or changed, or there was an update for it. Because I know a lot of people like to pull out the whole argument that they found child pornography at Michael Jackson's house and this, that, and the other. That was an old story done by Radar Online that was eventually recanted. The only problem is a lot of people don't like to pull out the recant. Now, with that being said, there's also another article that's out there that says that the first accuser of Michael Jackson, Jordan Chandler, changed his story around and that his father committed suicide because he was feeling guilt over the Michael Jackson case. That also is fake. That is wrong. Stop pulling that reference out. It is wrong. If you pull it out in an argument and somebody knows what the hell they're talking about, you will come off looking like a goddamn idiot. So again, make sure you check your references and back check and make sure that the story wasn't changed or it wasn't thrown out or there was some issues with it. Make sure you always keep up on the story because the stories do have updates. Let's see, I want to try to get into some other arguments. Let's go ahead and get into the argument about, well, Michael Jackson didn't have a childhood. Now, I fall on two different sides. I don't know how, but I fall on two different sides of the fence in this particular argument. Yes, it is true that Michael Jackson didn't have a childhood, but I do feel that that is not something that he should not be responsible for. Just because you haven't had a childhood, you should still become a person that takes certain situations and can handle them appropriately. And I will get to the word appropriate later on. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to Michael Jackson in his childhood, a lot of people like to put themselves in Michael Jackson's shoes or put other people in Michael Jackson's shoes and say stuff like, oh, well, Michael Jackson doesn't have an excuse because there are other people that don't have childhoods and they grow up perfectly normal and things like that. While I can understand that argument, you're kind of missing the context behind it. Michael Jackson is not a normal person. This is somebody that from the age of 6 has been working to get into the music industry. And when I say working, I do mean working. When Michael Jackson was 11, that's when he first became famous. So right there you have the celebrity. He becomes a celebrity. From that moment on until the rest of his life, he is a celebrity. And I want to say going back as far as, well, when he was 11, he became a superstar. By the time he turned 20, I want to say 23, 24, he became, without a doubt, the biggest celebrity in the world at that time. To put him in the shoes of, oh, well, you know, other people didn't have childhoods but grew up normal. You got to remember, Michael Jackson is a celebrity. And not just a regular celebrity, but a huge celebrity. This is somebody that, usually when you have celebrities and people are interacting with celebrities, it always comes with some type of ulterior motive. Whether it's, oh, well, I want to meet Michael Jackson because, you know, I want to be around him. Or, oh, I want to meet Michael Jackson because, you know, I could try to get into the music industry or something. He could be a connection to get into the music industry. Or I want to meet Michael Jackson because he would be a good tool for networking. I can go up to people and be like, hey, I know Michael Jackson. I'm a friend of Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's my homie. And you can get perks from that. you can get attention from that. So already we have a situation where when Michael Jackson meets somebody, especially an adult, the first thing that has to come to your mind is, okay, what is their ulterior motive? What is it that they want from me exactly? Do they want money? Do they want attention? Do they want an autograph? Do they want an interview? Something? There's always something. If you're that famous, you always have to be thinking about the ulterior motive. Just look at any lottery winner. They'll tell you as soon as you win the lottery, people around you change. The people that come and meet you, they change. It's not the same way as when you were a nobody. So again, I'm going to say it again. The idea that, oh, well, this person didn't have a childhood and became normal, you're not putting in the celebrity aspect of it. And then you also got to understand, I don't want to say you got to understand. That sounds like I'm defending something. But also, you got to take into context the fact that Michael Jackson was already a recluse. He was somebody that isolated himself. So when he went from being a child star where he was still popular, but for the most part, I think enough people would have enough moral, and I'm speculating right now, enough people would have enough moral background to not want to exploit a child. At least not in Hollywood. There's a lot of Hollywood people that would exploit children. But at least outside of Hollywood, you would understand that he's still a child. You're not going to try to take advantage of him. Okay, so you have to remember, again, Michael Jackson is a recluse. He's somebody that when he was younger, he was already very withdrawn into himself. He was somebody that didn't really associate with a lot of people, things like that. And then he gets older. He becomes world famous. You have people coming out making claims about you. And early on, a lot of the claims did in fact come from the Michael Jackson camp. The whole sleeping in a hyperbolic chamber, the buying Elephant Man's bones, Elizabeth Taylor's shrine, all that stuff was created by Michael Jackson's camp. But at some point, the paparazzi started adding other stories. And that is, I think, when Michael Jackson started to really take a step back and really start to analyze the people in his life. Like, who is, here for me? Or who's trying to take advantage? There have been a number of stories of people who have come out and tried to do things that at one point they said they were Michael Jackson's friend or close to him. And then over time, they have done something against him. Whether it was people stealing from him, whether it was people trying to take advantage of his money or finances, people that are trying to take advantage of his talent and ability. I mean, all you have to do, all you have to do is look back at the whole AEG trial. And again, this is based off of other people's testimony. So again, you have to understand that. But there was a lot of talk, especially around the time Michael died, about the This Is It tour in particular, and how he found himself in situations where there would be checks written by Michael Jackson that he did not sign. There would be tour dates. The This Is It tour was initially a 10-date tour. Or not really a tour, but a 10-date residency that eventually turned into 15 days. Michael Jackson has come out, or I don't think he's come out and said, but he has said that he didn't initially agree to that. That was something that they added on later, and it was something that really pissed him off. I've heard stories about a particular person that was in charge of Michael Jackson's finances by the name of Tomei Tomei. He was a guy that went out of his way to take advantage of Michael Jackson as far as his money, his influence. That's where those checks with the names that he did not sign were coming from. A lot of people in his circle that he did not trust. So we have to take into consideration, ever since Michael has become the world's biggest celebrity, I want to say around the Thriller era, maybe a little bit before Thriller, but let's be safe and say Thriller, has gotten to the point where he has to feel like, okay, well, what is your ulterior motive? Why are you trying to be associated with me? So you take into the fact that he didn't have a childhood. He was always growing up alone, which could develop into a complex. I've heard people throw out the term Peter Pan syndrome, which is a real thing. That is verifiable. That's a real thing. Now, whether Michael Jackson had it or not, I guess we're speculating. All you can go is based off of the profile that he fits. Does he fit somebody that has this syndrome or whatever? And then you have to add into the fact that when you're a world famous celebrity, adults that normally try to associate with you usually have some type of ulterior motive. And if they don't, they have to kind of prove that first. It's not, you don't go in assuming, oh, this person is perfectly fine, this, that, and the other. You have to you always think, okay, well, what does this person want? So you throw that in. I can understand how all of those factors can lead to Michael Jackson hanging with kids or wanting to be around kids. Because like I said, with him not growing up with a childhood, it can possibly develop into Peter Pan syndrome, where he wants to reclaim his childhood and be a psychological kid even though he's an adult. So that would already make him be more inclined to befriend kids. And then you throw in the idea of the adults around him being people that, want something from him or might have ulterior motives. Therefore, it can lead to trust issues. And when it comes to being social, you try to, stay away from those type of people because you don't know what they might be inclined to want. Kids, on the other hand, are people that usually don't have ulterior motives. If you meet a kid, chances are if they're interested in you, they're interested in you. If they're not, they do not hesitate to let you know that they are not interested in being around you. Kids will get bored very fast and will let you know that they're bored. So again, with that, I can understand how Michael will befriend kids and feel like he can trust them. Now, we get into the argument of inappropriate. What Michael was doing with kids, would that be considered inappropriate? That would depend on who you ask. And that is the reason why I don't use this as an argument for, oh, he's a pedophile. Because in my opinion, the idea of a pedophile is something that has to be proven, verified. You don't just go around and say, oh, you're a pedophile. Why? Oh, because I think you're a pedophile. That's not how something like that works. That's like somebody come up to me and be like, oh, you're a convicted felon. No, I'm not. Oh, well, I'm going to think you're a convicted felon until you can prove me otherwise. No, that's not how it works. Right? If you make a claim on someone, the burden of proof is on the person that makes the claim. If you say Michael Jackson's a pedophile, you have to have evidence that reinforce that backs that up. And to say, oh, well, he slept in a bed with kids, that does not equate to pedophile. Now, we can argue about the term inappropriate. For me, I would consider that to be inappropriate. For most people out there, they'd probably consider that to be inappropriate. Just because something's inappropriate, though, doesn't mean that it's automatically right or wrong. The only thing that makes it right or wrong is if an actual crime comes out of it. For example, when I was a kid, I grew up playing violent video games, mature-rated games, Mortal Kombat, Grand Theft Auto, games like that. A lot of people consider that to be inappropriate of my parents, to let me play games like that. They would consider it inappropriate. But it's not a crime and it's not wrong unless I go out and I commit a crime and I say, oh, well, this game motivated me to do this. And let's say there was a way for them to verify that motivated me to do it. Like I did something that was so similar to something that happens in the game, and they were able to prove that I was influenced by this segment of the game. Then inappropriate becomes something else. The idea of inappropriate does not mean something automatically bad happened. The reason something is inappropriate is usually because people have an opinion of whether or not this could lead to something bad. Now, again, that doesn't mean that it's automatically bad. It's considered inappropriate because if you put anybody else in this scenario, it's very possible that something bad could happen. It would be inappropriate to let your kids play on another block. Like let's say you're at a house and your kids are somewhere off in the woods playing. That would be inappropriate because something bad could happen. They could come home at the end of the day and nothing bad could ever happen. I know people that grew up playing in woods and things like that, my siblings in particular, who would go deep into the woods, play, and then come home. That is, I guess some people consider that inappropriate, some people wouldn't. But the reason it's considered inappropriate is because the possibility of something bad can happen is there. And I guess a lot of people consider a high possibility that something bad could happen. That doesn't necessarily mean something bad could happen. So to automatically jump to, oh, well, you did something that could put a kid in danger, therefore you're putting kids in danger. That doesn't correlate. Something else that I've heard people mention in the whole Michael Jackson situation is during the Leaving Neverland documentary, and I'm only going off of what I've heard so far. Again, I'm speculating. I'm trying to be very honest with this discussion and very open-minded. So if I'm speculating about something, I will let you know I'm speculating. And if I say something that I think is a fact, I will let you know that I think is a fact, and I will point to where I heard it from. Now, this goes into the next segment that I want to talk about, which is the 1993 settlement. I've heard discussions on both sides. One side saying that the settlement was made by Michael Jackson's insurance company at the time, and another side, specifically MJ Facts, which I said I was going to reference, but I'm only referencing in this particular argument because they do claim to point to the agreement itself, in which case they say that there is no reference to an insurance company making the claim for Michael Jackson. Now, the few things I do know about the situation is that during the time of the settlement, Michael Jackson was intent on fighting the charge. That's the reason why he hired Johnny Cochran and other defense attorneys. The settlement, from my understanding, was made after Michael Jackson was already admitted into rehab. Now, again, that's somewhat speculation because I do remember hearing about this and seeing evidence for it, but because I don't know it off the top of my head, I'm not going to say that it's 100% proof. But this is what I'm going off of. And again, speculation. And during that time when Michael Jackson was in rehab, he was not in control of his finances or his estate. His estate was given over to his managers and stuff while he was in rehab, and the settlement was made during that time. Now, the settlement itself, I've heard a lot of numbers being thrown around. The fact of the matter is the settlement itself was worth $15 million. And from what I read on the settlement at the time, it was $15 million that was to be given over an extended period of time. So it wasn't a lump sum. It was $15 million over a period of time. I believe it said 10 years. I could be wrong about that, but it's possible that the settlement could have been done over a long period of time. I do know it was a period of time. I just don't know for a fact it was 10 years. I do know it was some years though. And the main argument that I hear from people that usually present the settlement is the argument that, oh, well, why would you settle out of court if you didn't do anything wrong? Well, you have to take into consideration the context of that particular time and situation. At the time, Michael Jackson was currently on tour. Now, I do believe that the last end of his tour was eventually canceled, but at the time he was still on tour and doing shows. The idea that him putting a halt to the tour prematurely, or at least more premature than when he eventually did, that would mean that he would be in a position of possibly losing a lot of money. Now, again, we're talking about a settlement that is $15 million over an extended period of time. Michael Jackson, with his tour, was in a position where he could make $15 million in a very quickly. It would be kind of like if I can make an example. Let's say somebody makes an accusation against you. Let's say you have a job. For those of you that work, somebody makes an accusation against you and say, hey, I'm going to go and ruin your reputation. And again, I'm just saying if the accusations were in fact an extortion attempt. I'm going to go ahead and make an accusation that you did something, and I'm going to take you to court over it. Unless you pay me, let's say $25. Unless you pay me $25, I'm going to take you to court, and you're going to get subpoenaed, and you're going to have to attend the trial and do this, that, and the other. Now, if you attend the trial, you are going to miss work days. You missing work days is going to lead to you missing out on paychecks. So the argument is, would you be willing to miss out on, let's say you make $100 a day, and let's say the court settlement could last, let's be realistic, because if you do an actual court thing, then that could be months, and any normal job would just fire you after like a couple of days of, not like being consistently gone. So let's say the court date lasts a couple weeks. So you miss 2 weeks worth of work. 100 days, 40 hours a week, or $100 a day, let's say you work 5 days a week. So 2 weeks, that is $1,000. So pretty much the argument is pay me $25 or we can drop all this pay me $25 if we can drop all this, or we can drag this out and it'll end up costing you $1,000. The argument is, which one would you rather do? Does it come down to, all right, but I want to make sure I clear my name, or, I'm going to be missing out on a lot of money, and this is something that either is stupid or true. So I just want to get rid of it. Because again, that is something that is based on your opinion. Some people will probably pay it. Some people probably wouldn't. I'm not going to judge Michael for making the payment, because even with the payment being made, there is no admission of guilt. The settlement that Michael Jackson made, and you can read the settlement, it's online. I originally read it on smokinggun.com. I don't know if that's even a website at this point. It's possible it could be, but you can find the settlement in its entirety online. In the settlement, Michael Jackson never admits to any type of sexual molestation or sexual abuse or being sexually inappropriate with a child in any way. The only thing that I believe was signed off as potential reasons for the settlement was negligence, and what was the other one? I believe it was like potential to endanger, something like that. Potential to endanger a child, I think. I'm going off the top of my head. I do know negligence was one of them. I don't know if the other one was something like that. But the bottom line was, it wasn't accepting guilt of child molestation. And the settlement itself did read that this settlement is not an admission of guilt or a confession or anything like that. The settlement also didn't stop Jordan Chandler from potentially pursuing Michael Jackson in a criminal case or a criminal investigation or anything like that. The only thing it stopped was Jordan Chandler from going to the media and discussing the allegations, and it stopped, I think that's really it. It stopped him from going to the media and things like that, tabloids, from being able to make accusations against Michael Jackson. It didn't stop him from pursuing Michael Jackson from a criminal investigation. Oh yeah, it did stop a civil investigation. So the civil trial was pretty much thrown out because of the settlement. In 2005, during that trial, Jordan Chandler was completely within his right to go out and, be a witness for the prosecution. He could have done that. As a matter of fact, they even, I don't want to say they subpoenaed him because I don't know, but they did ask that he be a witness. But from my understanding, he left the country to avoid being called to the witness stand. Don't worry, that's my stomach. He did leave the country to avoid being called to the witness. Well, I can't say to avoid being called to the witness stand. He could have went for any possible reason, but it's speculated that he left because he was trying to avoid being on the witness stand. This gets into a segment that I want to get into as well. The whole argument that people make that, oh, well, R. Kelly got off, so therefore Michael Jackson doesn't prove anything that Michael Jackson was found not guilty. Or OJ got off, so it doesn't prove that Michael Jackson was found guilty. That is a fallacious argument, mainly because you're talking about different investigations done by different prosecution teams, carried out by different police districts and different detectives and everything. Completely different criminal cases. So the idea that, oh, well, R. Kelly got off, so therefore Michael Jackson, if he gets off, that automatically means that, well, you got to throw some doubt in the decision. No, you don't. The trials of O.J. Simpson and R. Kelly, for anybody that's actually studied the trial, they would tell you from the very get-go that R. Kelly and O.J. Simpson didn't win those trials. The prosecution lost those trials. Those trials were what I would consider to be a layup. Those trials would have been so easy to convict either of those defendants that it's baffling that they were found not guilty. That's the whole reason why we're even talking about it today, because the evidence was so overwhelming that they were guilty that the fact they were found not guilty makes it seem like there was some type of conspiracy or something else afoot. But if you look at the actual trial, you will see just how messed up the trials were. In O.J. Simpson's case, the whole idea that the lead detective got on the stand and flat out perjured himself in regards to the way he handles black suspects and the investigation itself, and lying about past, I want to say events, past work that he's done for the police department, in which he said that, police, well, I don't know if he said this for sure, but his argument pretty much was the idea that, well, police don't go around framing black people, but then they have audio of him talking about how he goes about framing black people. So automatically that throws in a little bit of reasonable doubt. Anybody that knows how the United States justice system works, reasonable doubt equals not guilty. You also throw in the argument that the prosecution tried to call O.J. Simpson up to try on a glove that the killer wore, that they said belonged to O.J., only to turn out that the glove didn't fit O.J. Now, we can talk about the context of why it didn't fit. I've heard all types of different arguments about the blood drying up and causing the glove to shrink or whatever else. The bottom line is the glove didn't fit. So, again, reasonable doubt. And then you talk about the actual investigation itself, in which case key members of the investigation and forensics were collecting evidence from the scenes of the crime, but not storing the evidence immediately. They would walk around with the evidence. They would contaminate crime scenes by, I don't want to say placing evidence, but being in places where evidence turned up while they were still in control of other evidence. That put the investigation into doubt. That is the reason why OJ got off. It wasn't because OJ was part of some conspiracy and he paid somebody off or anything. There was reasonable doubt. If you can look at that trial and say there was no reasonable doubt, then you don't know what reasonable doubt means. In regards to the R. Kelly trial, the only reason why he got off was because, firstly, the girl that was involved in the tape did not come forward and was willing to testify. So already, because of that, they can't prove that the girl in the tape was underage, because the only suspect they had that was supposed to be underage says that it wasn't her and she wasn't willing to testify. So right then and there, you kind of have to take that argument and throw it out, or at least legally you have to throw it out. You can come up with ideas yourself, oh, well, she looks underage or whatever, but from a legal standpoint, it's based on evidence. They don't have evidence that proves she was underage, therefore they can't prove that R. Kelly videotaped himself doing sexual things with somebody else underage. And then there was further doubt in the fact that not the prosecution, but the judge and the courts themselves could not prove without reasonable doubt that it was R. Kelly in the tape. If you watch the tape from back in the day, this was back in the VHS days, it was grainy. You can't necessarily guarantee that it was R. Kelly in the tape. So unless, like the Boondocks did it best, unless he started listing off his social security number and his address and start talking about the award show that he was just recently at 9 p.m. on the night before or something like that, there was no real evidence that pinpointed R. Kelly to it. Now, again, you have to understand that in order to prove something, you have to have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, you can have speculation. You can say that, oh, well, I think R. Kelly is inappropriate with underage people. And that's another thing. Some people might point out, like, oh, well, why are you defending Michael Jackson, but you're not defending R. Kelly? Or it might go the other way. Oh, well, R. Kelly was a monster, and you're a pedophile enabler or some shit because you're defending Michael Jackson, but you're being a hypocrite and you're condemning R. Kelly. R. Kelly has actual evidence that he is at least in some way attracted to young girls. Just the document that proves that he married Aaliyah proves that he is attracted to underage girls in some way. Did they have sex? There are people that say they did, but I can't guarantee it because it's based on accusations. No evidence that I know of has come out about that. Well, besides the tape, but going by a legal standpoint, like I said, you can't necessarily say one way or the other whether he did something or not. Or I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to stay on the legal aspects of this. Just the fact that he married Aaliyah right there proves that he is at least in some way attracted to young girls. Michael Jackson doesn't have anything going for him. He doesn't have, and this will also go into the argument of that people make of, well, what would it take for you to believe the accusers? Now, if Michael Jackson had somebody that accused him that has any type of actual proof, whether it's a video, in which case Michael makes a reference or talks about some type of relationship that they have on a intimate sexual level or anything like that, or makes any type of reference to a sexual act or sexual event or something that happened between them, even certain innuendos I'd be willing to pick up. If they have some type of letter that Michael Jackson has, if they have, I did see a small snippet of the documentary in which case James Safechuck pulled out a ring in which he said this was a ring that Michael Jackson gave him in regards to honeymoon, because they had like a marriage ceremony together and they had a honeymoon at I think they said at Euro Disney, which in and of itself was fabricated because Euro Disney was not open the time he said that the event happened. Now it's possible he could have just got his years mixed up. Maybe he was just off by a handful of years, but that's still a fabrication whether you want to believe he was intentionally lying or not. He also said that it has something to do with it being around the time that Michael Jackson did a Grammy performance in 1989 in, I think he said it was New York. But the problem was the Grammys in 1989 were actually took place, I believe, in Los Angeles, and Michael Jackson was not there. I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that one because Michael Jackson was at the Grammys the year before, and it was 1988, not 1989, and that one I believe did take place in New York. So the location and the event was true, but the time was off. So I'd be willing to give someone the benefit of the doubt for that. Maybe they just forgot. If they happen to have, like I said, if they happen to have witnesses that have evidence that comes out that Michael Jackson did do this, like I said, if it's an audio tape, a letter, in which case Michael Jackson signature is on it and it's verified that it's Michael Jackson, some type of forensic evidence were to come out, DNA or anything like that. If anything like that were to come out, then I would be willing to change my opinions on the situation and be more convinced that Michael Jackson did something sexually inappropriate with kids. But because nothing like that has come out, and the only thing that's come out is accusations, and the only accusations that have come out so far have had fabrications in them, and I was about to say messed up time frames and things like that, but that goes into fabrications. The fact that the people that have come out have had fabrications in their stories, as well as possible ulterior motives. Wade Robson has been suing Michael Jackson's estate ever since he made his claims in 2013. He's had a book that he's tried to publish that did not get approved for publishing. And he's done interviews and things like that. This documentary, even though they say they are not getting paid for it, they are still getting attention and awareness for their cause, which could lead to a possible book deal. It could lead to future interviews in which he is paid. It could lead to stories with tabloids, in which case he's compensated for his stories. It could lead to more documentaries in the future. He currently has a website up, in which case you can donate for victims of child abuse awareness, which in and of itself doesn't necessarily sound bad, but the fact that the donations begin at $250 and you can't donate anything lower than that, and from what I heard, the foundation wasn't filing a 990. I don't know if that's what it's actually called or if that claim is actually true. I've just heard someone make that claim. It comes off as kind of shady. And I'm not going to go ahead and do that if there's smoke, there's fire thing, because that also goes into the argument from ignorance fallacy. Oh, well, something must have happened because that that's not how logical discussions are had. I think I've talked about this enough. I want to try to make sure I hit on everything before, I release this, because I know the comment section is going to be swarmed by both sides that are going to be saying things that, I might have missed, or things that just flat out are not true. Again, don't go to the comment section, with your hashtags or with your outright, just flat out claims based on your own personal opinion. I don't want to hear anybody talking about, well, Michael Jackson is a pedophile because he sleeps with kids. That is a fallacy. I don't want to hear, oh, well, Michael Jackson is innocent because he would never do that with a child, and you were not there, you do not know. Just present your evidence and then base it on the evidence. So no matter how the argument turns, I don't want to hear people going, oh, well, but he slept with kids. What do you think would happen? Would you let your kids sleep in a bed with Michael Jackson? Because, again, that goes based on personal preference and what you would consider inappropriate. For me, it would be based on the situation. If my friend, or let's use me and King Rutherford as a reference. If I had a kid, even though King Rutherford does have kids, I could use him as an example, but I'm going to use him as the scapegoat in this one. If I had a kid and we were at King Rutherford's house, and let's say I got drunk at his house, so I wasn't able to drive home, in which case me and the kid were stuck sleeping over at his house. I would consider it inappropriate if I woke up and found out that my kid was just randomly went up and started sleeping in his room. That would be considered inappropriate to me, but at the same time, I'm not going to automatically assume, oh, you're a pedophile and you're sick and disgusting. Like, no. There could be all types of context surrounding it. Now, again, based on the situation, if me and King Rutherford, or let's say King Rutherford was babysitting my kid. Let's say I was on a business trip and I was across seas or something, and my kids were home alone. So I tell King Rutherford that he can either come over or he can take the kids to his house and he can watch the kids. Now, let's say that they're at his house, they're sleeping, they're at a new place, they're by themselves, they don't know, they don't want to be by themselves in a house all alone. They asked him, hey, can I sleep in your room? And they end up sleeping in the same bed. Now, when I get home and I find out about that, am I gonna, oh, you're a pedophile, you slept in the same bed as my kid? No, I'm not. I'm gonna think of it like, oh, well, maybe there was reasons for it. Now, if my kid comes out and says something bad happened, that is the point where I will look to investigate it and find out what really happened. But if nothing bad came out of it, and I will confront my kid also and ask them if anything happened. Like I said, if they say nothing happened, then I'm going to assume that nothing happened. But if something did happen, then I would investigate that. But it's all based on the situation. Matt Dillahunty did a very good analogy one time in which he was talking about certain actions being considered moral and immoral. And one of the references he made is pushing somebody out of a window would be considered an immoral action. But if they were in a house and the house was on fire, pushing somebody out of a window in that particular point could be considered a moral action. It depends on the situation. Not everything is the exact same. I've heard arguments that Michael Jackson slept in the bed with a bunch of kids. Only people I've heard make these claims are people that do not have actual evidence that backs it up. They've just made that claim. Only thing they go off of is the argument that Michael Jackson made, in which case he said he slept or he shared his bed with many kids. That's it. It doesn't list how many. I've heard people bring up numbers, and I've heard things as high as 800. I've heard that he spent years with kids and this, that, and the other. All that is based off of accusations and speculation. That there's nothing else tied to it as far as I know. If somebody can point to an actual article or a reference, then I will be sure to check it out. And don't point to Vanity Fair. Because Vanity Fair, a lot of the facts they got in their top 10 list or whatever of Michael Jackson is wrong. They say that Jordan Chandler matched the description of Michael Jackson's penis, in which case he did not. That is part of the court documents and was presented as evidence in the 2005 trial, And it turned out to be not true. And the other things listed in that list were not things that led to pedophilia. It was just listing the stuff that we all know that, you know, could come off as inappropriate. Michael Jackson sleeping with kids, Michael Jackson having art books, in which case there are depictions of naked children, in which case I was under the understanding that those art books featured kids in the sense that the old Roman art was done, like cherubs and things like that. Now, it could be wrong. I could look more into it. Again, I'm going to point to Michael Jackson facts again, even though, like I said, I don't really consider them necessarily a reliable source. I just consider them a middleman to check out their references. They make a reference in which case they found a handful of books from in Michael's possession that are categorized as art books, but do have a lot of depictions of naked kids, not necessarily in sexual acts, but pictures of naked kids. The claims that they made are things that they do not point to a source for. They do say that these books were considered for evidence in the 2005 trial, but the defense dismissed them as evidence. I'm not sure how that happened or if that's even possible, especially if this goes in line with the argument that the prosecution is trying to make that Michael Jackson is a pedophile and is grooming kids. So I'm not going to use that as evidence unless somebody can point to an actual court transcript, in which case those books are listed as, you know, things that were presented or something that he actually did have in his possession. Like I said, I'm not going to point to the Radar Online article, in which case they say that they found all types of, you know, graphic child pornography and animal abuse and all these other things, and kids, naked kids with, or naked adults with kids' pictures over their heads or whatever, because that story was recanted by Radar Online themselves. And any other site that you find that story on, they all reference back to Radar Online. Radar Online was the original source that broke that story, but they eventually recanted it because not only did the FBI, but I don't know if the FBI recanted it, but the Santa Barbara Police Department recanted it and said that they didn't actually find that stuff at his residence. So again, this is stuff that I'm going based off speculation. I will have a better idea of the facts, and I'll be able to make a better judgment on the accuser's accusations when I actually watch the documentary and hear what their the recent version of their accusations are, in which case I will address them specifically in a video. I'll go step by step and address each and everything that they claim. And I'll even have some snippets of court documents and things like that in the videos. But I appreciate you for hanging out with me for over an hour. This video is way longer than any other video I've ever done. This is the first time I've done this. I might try doing this in the future, in which case I will have to stop the video in between reactions or whatever I'm doing and re-upload or splice the videos together to make it one video. So look forward to possible longer videos. And if you did like this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share, whether you support Michael Jackson or you believe that he is inappropriate with kids. Oh, before I go ahead and end it, let me go ahead and address that. Like I said, I've already said that the idea that Michael Jackson is a pedophile, I believe that you should have evidence before you can make that claim. That is a very strong claim that requires evidence, and the burden of proof is on the person making the claim. Now, if you want to say Michael Jackson's inappropriate, you want to say Michael Jackson's weird, you want to say he's strange, you want to say whatever else you want to say about him that is objective, you are absolutely free to do that. That is all based on your own personal opinion. You are free to hold that opinion, and anybody that says that you're wrong for it, well, logically they're wrong, because you can't tell somebody what they think weird is. You can't tell somebody what they think strange is. But like I said, calling someone a pedophile is something that requires evidence. Just like calling someone innocent would require evidence. Even though the legal system says that you're innocent until proven guilty, actuality, you're innocent when evidence shows that you're innocent. You can be not guilty, but I can't say that you didn't do it unless I have evidence that says that you didn't do it. It's much like like I said, the God argument. It's very eerie how similar these arguments are. Somebody making a claim that God exists, you have to have evidence for that. But also at the same time, to say that God doesn't exist, you need to have evidence for that. The only proper area that you should be starting in is, I don't know. Is Michael Jackson a pedophile? I don't know. Is Michael Jackson innocent? I don't know. Is Michael Jackson guilty of being a pedophile? No. Evidence hasn't proved so far that he is a pedophile. Is Michael Jackson, well, I already said not, or innocent. Not guilty doesn't mean innocence. It just means that the evidence was not substantial enough to prove that someone did something. So until then, be sure to embrace that I don't know, because at the end of the day, that is the one logical standing position that everybody can be on and be right. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. I have a couple videos that should be coming out along with this video that will hopefully lighten the mood a bit. So I look forward to seeing you guys on them videos. Again, you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share. I'm Devon DaVinci. You just been a little bit more enlightened. And until then, or until those next videos come out and I see you there, I'm gonna give you the deuces. Peace.